Hi, I'm Laura, and I am the host of Eating from the Earth podcast. And on today's episode, we have a special guest, Candice Massaro, and she is the owner of CQG Farms, where she has a successful hemp farm and vegetable garden. I'm going to be asking her some really great questions about sustainability and starting your own garden and working towards being more independent. So looking forward to this interview, and without further ado, let's get started. This is Candice Massaro. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm so excited to pick your brain. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do.
Well, thanks for having me, Laura. It's always a good time when we get together. We are missing you down here, though, so come back soon.
Coming back soon.
My name is Candice Massaro. I am the cultivator, owner, operator at CQG Farms. I am a sustainable cannabis farm, hemp farm here in Naples, Florida. And I got my license roughly almost 3 years ago. And it has been a journey, to say the least.
Isn't it? Right?
Yeah, but my journey with cannabis started with my passion to just help others and spread the knowledge and just advocate for a plant that has such a bad rap. And it kind of just like sparked my, just everything, like everything blew up. Like, so I started just like getting into soil and then herbs, and then it was just like a rabbit hole that just kind of like just snowballed. It was a snowball effect.
A snowball effect in South Florida.
Yeah, the only kind of snowball you'll ever see, unless it's a plant. But I truly believe that everybody deserves access to healing plants, and especially grown in native local soil organically and sustainably, which is super important to me. And I'm just dedicated to like giving the power in the form of knowledge back to the patients. So.
I love that. And so about 3 years you've been doing this?
I've been growing and breeding hemp for almost 3 years, but I am a cultivator of many things. I started my journey in the legal cannabis market in Colorado Springs in 2013, and I've been a cultivator for 11 years. So.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, listen, that plant is just so misunderstood. And, I think more and more people are getting more used to hearing about it and understanding more about it. But, until the government has their hands out of it, I think it's just going to continue to be misunderstood. But people like us can be here to talk about it and spread the great word about that and about sustainable farming, which is so important right now. Actually, I had the opportunity, I've had several opportunities to come out to your farm, but I had this awesome opportunity to come out to the farm and interview you. And we did a video through your farm, and it's such a great video. So, how about I share that now? And then we'll come back and we'll talk more about CQG Farms and Candice Massaro. So I'm out here with Candice. Say hi.
Hi.
And we are going to go through her garden and look at all her beautiful plants. I'm taking a gardening lesson today. So these are what?
This here is a 3-year-old ghost pepper plant, which it was on its last leg. It almost looked about like that plant right there.
Oh, that one?
And then
full
we
of
planted
life right there?
We planted it in this big pot, and it came right back to life.
Wow.
And it's got all kinds of blooms. So everywhere you see a flower, there'll be a pepper if it gets pollinated by whatever blesses its flowers.
A ghost pepper. Those are really hot, right?
Super spicy, yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
This is a tangerine plant that we took from a 23-year-old tangerine plant tree from my father-in-law's house. And it's a little tomato, but I'm going to pull it out.
Oh, is that tomato?
You want it?
Yeah, I'll plant that. I mean, I have like a whole bunch of tomatoes.
It's just going to steal from the...
And so the tomatoes in there because a seed blew into this.
So I put my compost. I put my compost in there, and my compost is full of tomatoes, and I don't remove the seeds in my compost. So.
Oh, and sometimes you pop a tomato.
Mm-hmm.
See, some people can do it accidentally. Me, I have to put a lot of
They're
effort.
actually called volunteers, and once you start composting, you'll get a lot of volunteers. And these are indeterminate tomato plants, so that means that they grow like a vine almost. And determinate tomato plants will grow more like a bush. They're more preferred, but these are definitely indeterminate.
And so how do you determine whether they're indeterminate or determinate? Do you determine that when they grow?
Yep, by the shape of them and how they grow.
Okay. So I just recently planted a tomato, a little tomato like that, in 2 pots, and they both popped. So
Yay.
here's some more tomatoes, different variety.
Right. Yeah, I did 3 different varieties this year. I did these are.
And is that how big they're going to get normally?
Yeah. So these are not full blown tomatoes and not cherry tomatoes. They're like in between. They start with a C. I can never pronounce it. Castilla. And then these are cherubs.
Okay, cherubs.
And then these ones are Roma.
Oh, those are Roma tomatoes. Oh, those are my favorite.
Here we have my pride and joy moringa trees. I'm really excited to get them in the ground this year.
And this is what you're pulling out is what has just
These are just clovers. They're really good for fixing the nitrogen in the plant. And normally you till it and then you let it go back into the soil.
Oh.
So you keep it in the pot.
So did you intentionally plant
these
clover in there?
These grow naturally here, these clovers, but most gardeners do like a red clover cover crop is what we call it. And it covers the soil and actually fixes the nitrogen and also keeps the water retained. It also keeps your biology in the soil instead of like crawling out.
That's very
baking in the sun. So the cover crop, keeps it nice and cool and moist.
That is very interesting. So how did you get the clover to grow in there? Did it just grow in there naturally?
Naturally, yeah.
Okay, and so the seeds that are just blowing around or maybe in bird poop or whatever, that's really cool.
But moringa tree is super medicinally beneficial.
Yes, moringa is really good for you. Really good for you.
I planted these last year, so they're very fast growing trees and they're very linear.
Okay. So, how big will they get?
They'll get as tall as those pine trees.
Oh, wow.
But they'll grow a lot like this. So we have some pineapple sage.
Pineapple sage.
So this one I thought it was dead, but it had a live branch on it. So you can take it and just literally plant it.
And so what is this that you have what is this that you have coating the bed and why is
this? Is a no-tack straw covering. It keeps the top of the soil from getting like baked by the sun. So this one's more of a determinant type of tomato plant. This is a Roma. See how it's more of a short bush type. It's like kind of staying, its stature is kind of short and stocky.
Yeah. So
and this is all organic, no-till living beds with earthworms.
So this stuff that you put on the bed here, this is basically straw.
Yep, it stops the birds from dropping seeds in there and weeds growing. And also, like, I have a lot of these, you'll see from the pine trees.
Oh, yeah.
And then also pine cones and other things, like squirrels will come in here and dig something. It just keeps it nice and retains the moisture and keeps the heat from heating up the soil as well.
And so what is this right here? Is this another plant or is that a weed?
This is a hemp plant.
Oh, that's a hemp plant. Yeah. I thought it looked like hemp. Well, yeah, duh. Look at the beautiful leaf there. We know what that is, don't we?
Yep, that's a volunteer as well. And there's a little one right here too. It's already starting to flower.
So what will you do with this plant? You'll just eventually pull it and repot it?
I'm just gonna let it go. See what it does. No, I'm not gonna repot it.
So you have lots of tomatoes out here.
Yeah, and these all came from my compost. I didn't pop a single tomato seed this year.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I was like you, and I didn't want to kill any plants, so I just let them go. And
yeah, when you learn about the awareness of plants and you really start to kind of like connect with that awareness, then you become really a lot more compassionate towards that life, because just like, some children are born accidentally.
For instance, this spider, normally people are like, oh, a spider, and you'd kill it, but this spider is actually stopping a lot of the pests from attacking the tomato plants. So
oh, that's nice.
It's a circle of life.
Spiders are so great. I have several spiders around my new garden too, and I'm leaving them there.
If you ever see like some dead branches, just take them off, because your plant is going to try to fix that always, instead of sending its nutrients to where it needs to go.
So it's going to try to heal the part
Yeah.
that's not. Yeah, I was reading that about my my plant that I was pruning last night about how it'll come together and try to support. Yeah, that's it's beautiful the way that plants are so communal like that.
Yes.
Okay, so here's some volunteer squash.
By the chicken coop, so it probably came from something we fed the chickens.
So the chickens pooped out a squash seed and a squash plant grew. So this is the what?
The infamous allspice tree.
Nice.
Go ahead and give them a note what the notes are in that smell right there.
It's allspice. To me, it smells like bay rum, but I can smell the.
It's like
cinnamon,
nutmeg, clove, elderberry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Clove.
I can smell the clove for sure. I love that smell. It smells like Thanksgiving.
This is a Bermuda cherry tree.
Bermuda cherry tree.
Just got this one for Christmas.
Will it make cherries, or is
Yes,
that just
so
the
it's
name
off
of
a
it?
blooming plant. So everywhere you see flowers, there's going to be cherries.
Let me get this going. So this is a dwarf mulberry tree. So a dwarf mulberry tree. So will you get mulberries from this?
Yeah, I actually just dropped one. It had just started to grow. Pulled it off. But little mulberry.
Oh, I love mulberries.
New for people just now starting. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but tree farming is. I mean, if you pop a tree from seed, which I did this Indian almond, it'll be 8 years before I see any type of fruit or nut from it.
So you took a branch off of another mulberry tree and you just planted it in the ground.
Correct.
So what did you do before you actually stuck it in the ground? Did you have to
We made sure it was good and rooted in its pot and it was healthy, and then we planted it in the ground.
Okay, so you started it in a pot.
Yeah. When you pop a tree from seed, it takes you might not ever even sit under it. You know what I mean? Like that saying, to plant a seed is to believe in the future, or to plant a tree seed is to know that you'll never sit under it. But still, it's for the next generation, you know?
Yeah, it's being a good ancestor.
Yep.
That's what we have to be, good ancestors. And this is an almond tree, right?
This is an Indian almond tree. It's native to Cuba. We actually never saw them here until they started bringing them over.
So an Indian almond tree, does this produce almonds? Are those a form of almonds?
It's a form of almonds. So the leaves, the fruit, and the nut are all medicinal. And everything that we plant on this farm will be for consumption of plant medicine in some way, shape, or form. So I popped these from seed. Very, very proud of myself. We did get a couple.
Beautiful tree. How long ago did you plant it?
I want to say 3 years ago.
And what part? And you said
this is a fast growing tree too. So this isn't. You're not going to see a typical 3-year-old tree be this tall.
Yeah.
They're very super fast growing. But the best thing about this tree is, before I even knew it was medicinal, I would see them alongside the road, like towards Miami, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I need that tree." It grows like like an umbrella. The canopy is literally like an umbrella. It grows like this, and then it's flat on the bottom.
Wow.
So it's just the best, like aesthetically pleasing, like shape.
Nice shade tree.
Shade tree. Yeah.
Nice shade tree. Now what is this guy over here?
This one is an avocado. It's a Morris avocado tree. But anywhere you see all these, there's going to be avocados. And here we have a Valencia mango tree.
Oh, a mango tree. And is that, you said Valencia, is that different from your standard mango?
It's like a bigger variety. Like they grow like probably 30 feet tall and like probably 8-10 feet around.
Wow. How long will it be before tree gets that big?
So when I bought it, it was just a stick, and then it was last year. So I have some new growth here. I had some new growth coming right here. So she likes where she's at. They did tell me that not to water it a lot. It doesn't like a lot of water. So to plant it where it slopes, so that the water would run away from it.
Yeah, because it runs down through here and it catches what it wants.
And here we have Simmons avocado. Yeah, this is an Oro Blanco lime that I grafted onto a Myers lemon tree. So it's a lemon and a lime tree in one.
How did you do that?
You have to, it's a process, but you air root. So basically you put soil around a healthy branch. Oops. And you wait until it throws roots, and then you cut it, and then you plant it, and it's a whole new tree.
So
And
you,
this right here is lichen. This is like the most powerful. It's like clindamycin. It's the most powerful antibiotic you can get from nature.
that also grows on lava. Lichen
Lichen?
does, yeah. Lichen
Probably a
grows on
different kind.
lava.
Like right here is two different kinds. So here's one kind of lichen, and then here's another type of lichen.
Yeah, like an air plant.
Mm-hmm. It grows like a moss kind of.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. That was such a great video. I love coming out to your place and I love seeing what you do and how you do it. So I've got a few questions for you. Um, just as a side note, Candice was so gracious to volunteer her time to me to teach me how to grow stuff. And I don't know. I just was like, it was something I was so passionate about. And then as soon as it was introduced to my life, it just blew up and turned into this big thing. And I love growing my own food and I've harvested a lot now. And I'm just
I'm
really
so proud
excited,
of you.
um, to have such a great mentor in this journey. So, anyway, for my first question, why do you feel like it's important to have a garden in today's political unrest? And what steps have you taken to be sustainable and independent? Two-part question. Feel free to answer it in two parts.
Okay, well, sustainability is simply making something last. That's the simple definition of sustainability. So if you just think about that in like simple terms, it's about protecting the environment. It's about preventing depletion of the soil and the resources that are left, which is not finite. It's not infinite. It's finite, right? Is that the word?
Finite,
Finite,
finite, wherever
finite,
you're from, I don't know. Yeah, finite.
infinite, finite.
It's not infinite. It doesn't last
Right,
freaking ever, dude.
right. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, preserving the resources that were given to us. I mean, it was all given to us to use, for our good and for our healing and for medication and for food and for nutrients. So, um, it's been, it's been overused. It's been not replenished. And so that's what sustainability is for me, is replenishing and giving back and making things simpler.
What steps have you taken to be more sustainable in your own farming? What have you done to be more sustainable?
Well, I started growing my own food about 6 years ago, and it has been a journey to say the least, as far as the climate, the pests, the insects, the weather. So, it's been a learning process and a lot of falling down. And I started composting, and just every scrap of food that we did not use or was normally thrown out, we composted. And luckily, I had worms in my composter. They found their way into my composter, and I had like a little worm farm. So I was composting, and then I also had, worm castings, and I was, it was just kind of, like I said, like a snowball effect. Like one thing led to the other thing, and then, you need the one thing for the next thing. And so, my biggest hurdle has been pests, 100%.
Okay, yeah, and natural like pest control, right? That's been like a big.
So that's what got me growing herbs, was spending so much on IPM, which is your integrated pest management program. And if you're a farmer, if you're a serious cultivator, then you have one, and you should implement it whether you have pests or not. And a lot of big ag or just agriculture or farmers, cultivators, they can't get around using pesticides because of the quantity that they're growing. Um, so that's a huge reason why CQG Farms is so different. Is that if we can't eat it or drink it, it's not going on our plants. It's not going on our fruit trees. It's not going on our hemp,
Because
so
eventually you're going to be eating or drinking it, right? Because
yes.
right.
And
Yeah.
all of it is medicinal in some way or another, whether you believe it or not. Everything is packed full of amino acids and vitamins and compounds, and it gets very complex. So
Yeah. Let food be thy
reminds me of
medicine, medicine be thy food, right? So do you use now I know like with genetically modified foods, you can't reuse the seeds well for one thing, there's just not any seeds in there. But for another thing is that whenever you do plant like a genetically modified seed from a fruit that's, been treated like that, it just disintegrates in the soil. It doesn't turn into anything. Do you use your own heirloom seeds?
Always 100% we use heirloom seeds. And if I don't have them, then I recommend Baker's Creek. They are an heirloom seed company, and I swear by their customer service. And yeah, they're amazing.
We'll put that
Yeah.
link in the description so people can reach
But
out.
you know, the GMO, like if you try to, like, I know it's bad to like regrow your vegetables from the store, but if you're buying it from Walmart, you don't want to regrow that. There is what makes it GMO is genetically modifying the DNA of that plant, right? And so it affects it on an epigenetic level, and the grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren, or the plants of that plant, you know what I mean, down the line are always going to carry that epigenetic, chemical change, which
Right.
is what we're trying to get away from. So
Right. And as the plants change and are altered, they stop making their own seeds and it just basically becomes something fake. Like it's not even real food anymore, right? It's just bioengineered. But yeah, I have actually a few plants that I've stuck down in there and I harvest 3 or 4 or 5 peppers almost every day from those little peppers that I planted a while back ago. And so that's super fun. Now, as far as like genetically modified crops, and I talk a lot about on different podcasts and social media and constantly talking about how bad genetically modified foods are. The more that we learn about these things, those pesticides like you're talking about are like literally injected into the seed, and those are forever chemicals, right? So forever chemicals are one of the things that are stopping us from being fully sustainable and keeping our soil good. Our soil, even the soil that you're on, every bit of soil in this country is destroyed by pesticides and fertilizers and fungicides and herbicides and all these dangerous chemicals that they're using. How are you getting around that? What are you doing to prevent those from the deteriorated soil that covers the United States? What are you doing to prevent that from getting into your food?
Oh, I mean, our soil is ungrowable. It would basically be like a hydroponic grow somewhat. It would be like a sandponics type of plant that would grow in the type of lime rock and littoral sand that we have here. So I'm actually on my journey, like taking baby steps, but this is the first step. We're starting a permaculture food forest, and we're getting about 200 loads of mulch brought in, and we're gonna build the soil back. It's something I've been talking about for 3 years, and like now it's actually coming to life, and it's a dream of mine to be able to feed my family and make it a legacy for my children.
That's awesome because that's us becoming good ancestors, right? Because if you think about the habits that have been instilled in us from our parents, even though they didn't know because they were told it was safe, all this that was instilled in us is making us very sick. And it's up to us to learn from their mistakes and be better ancestors overall, right? And that's
Yeah.
what you're doing, and that's
It's
amazing.
like that age old saying, to plant a tree you'll never sit under is to believe in the future. And I
Yeah.
100% think like that's a motto to live by, because every seed bearing plant was given to us on this earth to do good things with.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I know I know, and you probably know this too, that uh Monsanto, who is the main producer or is the producer of Roundup, but is also the main producer of genetically modified seeds in the United States and in Canada. Their goal is to prevent us from growing food. They do not want us growing food because if we grow food, we don't need pharmaceuticals anymore. And if we grow food, they don't have a job, right? So, that's their main goal. So heirloom seeds are a commodity, like an invaluable commodity. And I too, when I harvest, I take the seeds out and I dry them and put them up. And so I'm creating my own little heirloom seeds too. So it's important that when you do grow to save your seeds, because there will be a time where that's going to be something you're going to really, really need. And it's
It's going to be
great.
a form of currency for life. So it's something to invest in, and it doesn't take a lot of effort or money to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So let me ask you another question. How do you ensure that you are growing organically, like protecting your plants from cloud seeding and frequent mosquito spraying, which I know happens out there because, it happens everywhere in Naples. How
mhm.
do you protect your plants from that?
I grow in greenhouses, but I can't protect every plant from what they spray. I know a guy who actually knows the guy who drives the plane. And
Okay.
so he asked him, and he owns a food forest. And so he asked them like what they're spraying. And he told me right off the top, I can't remember what it was, but he told me right off the top of his head what they were spraying. And he has a food forest and he didn't seem worried. So I was like, okay, I'm going to not worry about that part, at least for now. But the hemp is super, super sensitive to whatever they spray. And so I do greenhouse grow my CBD.
And
Absolutely.
as far as your soil goes, your soil you use is all composted soil that you've made yourself from your own food, right?
So my soil base is Bio365, and I was lucky enough to be sponsored by this beautiful company, and they believe in soil that's backed by science, and so it's a biochar based soil, and biochar is amazing for microbe life. It gives them like a little hotel to live in while they're helping your plants out, and we always say to feed the roots if you want to feed your fruits, and so keeping the microbe activity alive is super important. So my base is definitely Bio 365, but I just re-amend it with my own compost and we keep it going. I grow my vegetables in a no-till raised bed. We're about
What
to
does,
build two more, so
what
I'm
does that
excited about
mean? What does
it.
a no-till raised bed mean?
It's actually a no-till living soil raised bed. So a raised bed is something that's on top of the earth. So we used some reclaimed pallets and we lined it with garden fabric and we filled them with soil and that's what we're growing in. So I have not, like when I pull my plants out, I don't dig it and like rake it and turn the soil. I just leave it be. And I plant the next plants in there and their root zone feeds off of and holds on to the existing root zones. And it just is it's a beautiful thing.
Okay,
So
so for people like me that are just getting started and have like a small pot and we're doing small pots of soil, for instance, I just pulled a struggling bok choy that I didn't have much hope for. It was very sad to do it, that it breaks my heart to kill plants, but I had to euthanize that poor plant and take him out. And now I have that same soil and I could safely just put just like just going in, mixing it, maybe throwing a little fertilizer in there or something, diatomaceous earth or whatever, filling it in and mixing it. I could just stick another plant right in there, right?
yep. And it's okay. So basically you can't have a living soil bed in any less than probably 20 gallons. So your pots you can make living by making sure you're feeding the microbes, and that's doing like earthworm casting tea or feeding with molasses. That's feeding the microbe and bacteria life. And what they're doing is feeding the roots with what they're basically transforming the nutrients into what the plant needs. So,
So I
feeding.
typically use a fertilizer, an organic fertilizer that's made with worm castings and all kinds of other great stuff. Is that sufficient to
Oh yeah,
support the bio?
absolutely. If it's just a regular pot, as long as you're not using Miracle Grow, that's offensive.
No,
But
no,
besides that,
no. I have a strict rule of thumb in
no,
everything
I
I
went.
buy.
Listen, I went to Lowe's with this lady for her for just to show her the ropes a little bit, and we did great. We did great. We had fun.
I know. Listen. I'm real funny about stuff. If I've seen a commercial for it, typically I'm not buying it.
Well,
So
Monsanto owns it, so
yeah, they do. They do own it. I know.
the
They own.
more you know.
The more you know. Monsanto is a bad dude. They're a bad company.
I wanted to throw this in there about the sustainable farming is that it also promotes, pollinators, and it reduces your need for irrigation, which also conserves water. There's just a lot of things like it helps sequester
How does it do
carbon.
that? How does it do that? How does it reduce the need for irrigation?
So by basically, so once the food forest is established, I'll be able to chop and drop. So I'll be able to chop foliage and just drop it, and it would have the nutrients that it needs because it's the same plant, right? So it would just feed it back to the soil, and the soil would feed it back to the tree. Um, but the mulch, and we're talking like 2 feet of mulch, right? And over a matter of a year or two, it breaks down into soil. So it keeps
So you
it
mean
it
it
keeps it
holds
moist.
it keeps the water in, kind of like
I was
the
getting to that,
straw.
yeah. So like
Yeah,
it
gotcha.
definitely like is layers of moisture retention. So
Got it. Got it. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I mix the straw in with my soil and to hold the moisture in. COIR. Not really sure how to say that word, but
core,
where, yeah, I use that. Okay.
coconut core.
That'll lead us into the next question, which is what steps are you taking to improve the soil quality where you live? And what steps do you think we can all take to help improve the soil quality? So just regular Joe, what can other people do to improve the soil quality around their home? And what have you done to do that?
I was growing my food on a hill for a really long time, and when we have rainy season, the soil would wash out of my garden and into the rest of the yard, and then mushrooms started growing, and so I went and visited a farm, and I learned a little bit about how to tell if your soil is good. He was saying that the diversity of mushrooms that you find in your on your property would be a good indicator of how healthy your soil is.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a minute about mushroom growth, the fungus growth, because I see them a lot, little mushrooms that pop up, especially in my compost. I'll see them pop up in my compost. I'll see them pop up in my plants sometimes, if it gets really moist in there. So, what variety of mushrooms should we be looking for to show that we've got some improvement in the soil quality?
I think I'm not a mushroom expert. So I honestly, I always see them pop up, and I'm like, I just look at it as a good sign because there's fungal activity going on in your soil, and fungal activity is a good thing because
And
that means there's activity.
So you could almost like compare the soil of a plant to the gut of a human. The more gut biome that we have, the healthier our gut is. The more fungal biome or the microbiome, whatever that's in the soil, the healthier the soil is, which in turn, the healthier the plants can be. There's so many connections between humans and plants. It's just, I learn something new about myself every day from my plants, and it's just remarkable.
Yes, absolutely. I've learned more cultivating multiple varieties of plants and trees, and than I have. I don't know. It's just it's therapeutic. It's just amazing the things that it gives back to you. It does. It gives like what the work that you put in your garden, you get back out 100-fold.
Yeah, it's very
So
rewarding. It's so
yeah,
rewarding. It is.
it is.
I haven't yet found that the work is hard. I don't find it hard. I find it relaxing to go out and work in my garden. Physically working just kind of turns me on. I love to work hard and I love to climb on things and hike and climb mountains and do things like that. So when I'm out there in the garden, that just feels like, because, as humans, we were designed to be productive. That was our design was to, even in the Christian Bible, it says in there that he'll work the ground and it won't give. And, that's what we were meant to do. We were meant to work the ground, really work it and physically work hard. And I feel like that's something that the garden gives back to you, is that need to be productive, right?
So there's a term for the type of gardening that I taught you, and it's called back to Eden gardening, and that's just going back to the very basics of and stop complicating everything and just really just look at it at the bigger picture. And plants need food, and they need water, and they need light. And those three basic needs, if they're always met, will keep the plant thriving.
Okay. So, so let's just kind of spur off on that. So plants need food, they need water, and they need light. Food for just the novice, like me, still a novice, people that are just getting started. What is the best option for plant food? If you just wanted to buy one food for your garden, what would be the best option for that?
So that's that's not an easy question because it depends on how diverse your garden is because every plant needs different things. Like tomatoes, they love nitrogen. You know what I mean? And peppers, they
Nitrogen you
love
would get
phosphorus.
nitrogen you would get that from.
Nitrogen, so I would say like the best all-encompassing nutrient would be earthworm castings. Um, because if you want to go to like any kind of casting. So like chickens, they have high nitrogen, but it runs super high. So too high for certain plants,
Mhm.
like hemp. And
Oh,
rabbits
and
have a
heather.
very yeah, so and like horse poop is really good. It just depends on what you have access to. If you're like a type of like you don't have time to like I don't know source your manure or that type of thing, then if you're just going to like a Home Depot, then they do have bags of like earthworm castings. But also there's something called NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and they um that's the three main nutrients that every plant needs to survive.
Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. That sounds eerily like the minerals that we need in our body when we get
And
dehydrated and we don't have our potassium and all of that.
also, I have found in gardening CBD that magnesium is huge. So, like an Epsom salt, I supplement in my plants, um, and it's incredible. Like
How
if
often
you
are you
think
giving them that? How often are you giving them Epsom salts?
probably once every couple weeks.
Every couple of weeks? Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
they could probably take it every watering. Honestly, it's not harmful. They definitely use it up.
Okay. So, I'm working on my third Ayurvedic, certification. And this is a certification on plant medicine that I'm taking right now. I'm learning more about the way they use herbs in India.
Hmm.
Um, and the facilitator of the course is named Arashniya Shunra, and she was brought up by her grandfather, who was an Ayurvedic master, and um, he raised her in this lifestyle, in this Ayurvedic lifestyle. So such what a great way to be raised. I'm just like that's just
Blessed.
one of the stories that she told in this course to me confirmed what I already knew, but just resonated with me on such a powerful level. So the story went, her grandfather was this, he was a practitioner, an Ayurvedic practitioner in India, but he was very respected and people would come from all over India to see him because he was just so great at what he did. And a man came and he had the technical term is piles, but what we call it is hemorrhoids. But he had very bad piles where he wasn't able to have bowel movements and he was becoming very sick and toxic, not to mention he was very uncomfortable all the time. And so all this, it was just a terrible situation. So he journeyed he was a very successful businessman in India, and he traveled from his home to see Arishna Shunra's grandfather, a long journey, which was she said in the story that was not only a long journey, but is very difficult for him on his sore bottom. Which I can only imagine riding in a car for that long, or who knows when that was. It could have been riding a horse. Who knows? I don't know. But
Yeah, they probably didn't have pillows back then.
yeah, or the donuts that you sit on. But so he's like coming all the way, and so he came to the man and presented his problem to her grandfather, and her grandfather's remedy was not at all what I expected, because I expected to prescribe him some herbs, like that's what you would do. He told him that the number one remedy for piles in Ayurvedic medicine is butterfly pea powder. And butterfly pea plant grows very well in India because it's humid and it's warm, and this is kind of like a ground cover type plant. And so he told him to go and grow this butterfly pea plant and grow. I think he told him, like, I gave him a certain amount of his property to grow it on, like a large amount of this plant. He said, don't consume any of it. Just grow it, harvest it, and process it into a powder and bring it back to me. And he said, you need to take a hiatus from your business. You need to take a 6 month long break from your business and do this and grow this plant. And so he did. And 6 months later, he and his family came back all with armloads of this butterfly pea powder that they had processed. He brought it to Rishi Shunra's grandfather so that he could distribute it to the poor and give it to the people that needed, that couldn't afford to buy medicine. But like I said, he strictly instructed him not to consume any of it, to only process it for charity, to give it away. When he came back with it all, he was so happy. He was completely healed. The piles were gone. His bowel movements had normalized. And a big part of that was the stress of the job, of course. But another big part of it was working with the herb, like working directly with the herb and getting the healing properties of the plant just by growing it and forming a relationship with it. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe wholeheartedly about that, because even back in the early 1800s, people would put seeds in their mouth, and seeds have a genetic memory. So they will remember what you needed from your saliva, just the contents of your saliva, and they will grow accordingly and grow to the nutrients that your body needed. And I wholeheartedly believe in that with all of my soul. And growing is growing. It is growing personally, you know what I mean? Like personal
Yeah.
growth. It's ever evolving. Um, yeah.
That's really interesting. So they would actually put the seed in their mouth, attach their DNA to the seed, and then the seed would know. That's very interesting that you say that, because when Brian and I came back from Arizona last year, and we both ended up with RSV, and somehow we ended up with that, and we were both extremely sick for a while. And after I healed enough to kind of go back outside again, I had already started planting some stuff. um, the broadleaf plantain had popped up in the yard right outside our door. And it turned out that that is used in Ayurvedic medicine to treat upper respiratory infections as a result of an upper respiratory virus. And I thought, wow. And it was it was only in my yard. It wasn't in anyone else's yard. It was just in my yard. And I thought, wow, that is crazy how Mother Earth literally knows what you need. Moving on, if you were just a new grower, somebody that just wanted to start a small garden, in a small space, because that's kind of my niche, is I'm just talking about like small space gardening. We live in a small space, and, I know that people feel like they can't garden and they can't grow because of where they're living. But, I know that you can. I know that you can grow in pretty much any condition. So if you were just if there was another me that knew nothing about growing anything and could hardly keep a plastic plant alive, what would you recommend for them to start growing?
I've had a really good luck with okra here in Florida. Also, turmeric and ginger I've had really good luck with. And tomatoes are forgiving, but also unforgiving. So it just depends on which variety of tomatoes you grow. If we're talking about our area specifically, it's like cherry tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, like smaller tomatoes that don't take as long to mature because of sun, blight, pests, squirrels, birds.
Okay. And then what would you recommend they stay away from? Just getting started.
Um,
Well, I guess let me rephrase that.
I don't really want to recommend anything because you don't know until you try. But I've had a really hard time with courgettes and legumes, which are pretty easy to grow pretty much everywhere.
Beans? You're talking about beans?
Beans and like melons or I don't know, courgettes. They're like melons, like pumpkins and cantaloupes and those
Well,
type of things. Yeah.
okay. I've got another bean plant growing. I have killed probably 10 bean plants this year. And I
Girl, me
cannot,
too.
I get them to where they're like about like this. And then they just say, I hate you. I'm dying.
Yeah, you definitely have to make them climb because staying on the moist ground it just promotes bacteria and mold and PM and all that good stuff. So
Okay. I would love to do another show later on with just like 3 plants that we can
I would
talk
love
about
that.
how to start them, how to cultivate, how to everything with them. So we
Yeah.
can definitely do another one of those. Okay. Okay. So